Welcome to Creation in the 21st Century. I'm your host, Carl Baugh, founder and director of the Creation Evidence Museum in Glen Rose, Texas. Now, you will want to pay close attention to the program today because it could affect your practical life. This is a program having to do with evidence for creation, scientifically verified, and we have today as a special guest a dear friend of mine for almost a quarter of a century, a man that I highly respect in his field, and you will be benefited by his knowledge. Now, the title to today's program is Millennium Medicine. We're going to talk about the practice and application of medical science. Are we doing the right thing? Why are we doing what we do? Now, I have no medical background. I've paid a lot of medical bills, but I have no medical background. However, my esteemed colleague and guest today will adequately handle the situation. He's been on both sides as a practitioner and still heads his own clinic, has published a very specific newspaper having to do with practical application of these principles for over a decade. Now, to lay the foundation, I'd like for the audience to realize that there are two schools of thought, and this is demonstrated probably as well in medicine as in education. In medical science, annually we spend billions of dollars in research. We spend trillions of dollars in the application of that among the practitioners, the hospitals, literally trillions of dollars, consuming a large percentage of our budget on human well-being. Now, I've known many medical doctors, scholars, professors at medical universities. I have children involved in that kind of research with certified degrees, and it's of interest to all of us because we want to be as well as we can. There are two basic schools of thought. One is the evolutionary paradigm, which envisioned a big bang, an explosion of that producing debris, gives us the orientation of our value in an evolutionary, humanistic enterprise of the universal experiment we call evolution, arriving ultimately in the mind of man. But this offers no hope and considers the human body as just a machine to target and basically an evolving piece of mechanism at that. On the other hand, we have the creation model showing that from the origin of the entire system, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. The earth was without form and void. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. The Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. On day number 2, He created a firmament. And we're going to discuss with our special guest the impact of such a firmamental canopy, greater atmospheric pressure because of the smaller diameter of the earth, and then the expansion of that at during the days of the flood and the days of Peleg, and how this now applies to our decaying context and the renewing of this in the future millennium. How would this affect the mind of man? In our current context, with only 1 atmosphere of pressure, 14.7 pounds per square inch, how does this affect the assimilation of oxygen throughout the human system and especially in the brain? How does this affect the retention of brain cells in fetal development? And how does this affect the entire ecosystem? For it is all one grand design. Having laid that foundation, hopefully you got all the principles I was discussing. I'd like to now welcome my dear and personal friend, medical doctor Dale Peterson. Dr. Peterson, such a joy to have you back on the program.
Good to be here, Carl.
You've been with me many times on the program, and many times with me excavating dinosaurs. And over the years, we've discussed various breakthroughs that you've made. Now, your background, you were a professor in addition to your medical training, professor at University of Wisconsin Medical School. Is that correct?
Yes, I was. Also University of Oklahoma.
All right. And in fact, you were the president of the Standard Practitioners, Medical Doctors?
Oklahoma Academy of Family Physicians.
Oh, that's marvelous. And then you practiced standard medicine for about how long?
For about 2 decades.
Then you had some insight.
Well, I first met you in 1984. And I had a very busy family practice at that point.
Oh, yes. Your own clinic.
Using traditional
with various
medicine.
associates, yes.
And, but I began, as I understood more and more about the creation model,
yes,
and began to see how that would apply to sickness and health, I began to have incredible internal turmoil.
Okay.
Because I began to realize that just as there are 2 schools of thought in the biological sciences, the geological sciences, there are 2 schools of thought in the medical sciences.
Okay.
Now, one school of thought says that you and I are the products of millions of years of evolutionary development.
And a big accident.
A big accident, and when things go wrong, it means that the body has somehow malfunctioned, and it's the enemy, and we must beat it into submission somehow, whether that's chemically, surgically, radiation. And there are times when things have gone so awry that those modalities are needed and can be helpful.
Understood.
But they should never be viewed as the first line of defense, which they are in our society.
Yes.
On that school of thought would say, and I've heard this numerous times in medical lectures, that the reason my father died of a heart attack is because he had not evolved far enough past his hunter-gatherer stage to survive in an informational world.
Oh, so tragic.
On the other hand, the other point of view is that the body was carefully and wonderfully designed to function within certain parameters. Now, you and I know that most of those were lost at the time of the biblical flood.
Yes.
But that viewpoint says that when disease occurs, the body is not the enemy.
Right.
The body is our greatest ally in the fight against disease because
it wants to restore and
because
repair
of all
itself.
The incredible intrinsic healing mechanisms God has placed inside it. They simply need to be supported. So the closer we can return the body to those conditions God originally had in mind, the better it's going to function.
Oh, very well. Profoundly stated. Dale, let's let the audience in on what we're talking about. This is a schematic chart showing the design of the universe, the cosmos, and the earth in pristine context, with the internal structure not disrupted into volcanic radioactive discharge, but instead the diameter of the earth being slightly smaller, meaning on a practical medical basis, which is your area of proficiency, you would have greater atmospheric pressure. And at Texas A&M they found that if you double the atmospheric pressure, you triple the assimilation of available oxygen. As a medical doctor and practitioner and professor, what would that do to the body if you could triple the assimilation of available oxygen?
I am aware of at least 4 distinct reasons that individuals age.
Okay.
One of them is called mitochondrial decline.
All right.
Mitochondria are the energy factories of our cells.
Yes.
Every cell in the body has mitochondria. Some have more than others. Liver cells are rich with these energy factories. The heart muscle is rich with these energy factories. But they are dependent upon oxygen for producing energy.
Yes.
And over time, due to the fact that we live in a relatively low oxygen environment relative to what it was prior to the flood,
in the design
those
phase,
mitochondria wear out.